On January 30th, 2026, the world received what many thought would be the final word on the Jeffrey Epstein case: 3 million pages of evidence. But as investigators and survivors begin to peel back the layers, a familiar sentiment has emerged. This is still just the tip of the iceberg. In this 8-minute deep dive, we examine the scale of the 2026 data, the files that remain hidden, and the network that spanned the globe. To understand why these files matter, we have to look back at the man who built this network. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier who moved in the highest circles. From Palm Beach to Paris, he cultivated relationships with billionaires, politicians, and royalty, using his wealth to gain access and influence. His first brush with the law came in 2008, resulting in a controversial non-prosecution agreement that many saw as an early sign of his protection. In 2019, the situation changed. Epstein was indicted for sex trafficking of minors, a case that threatened to expose his entire network. His death in custody later that year sparked a wave of theories and a renewed demand for the records he left behind. The focus then shifted to Ghislane Maxwell, his longtime associate convicted in 2021 for her role in recruiting his victims. For years, the public was denied access to the full scope of the evidence. That changed with the Epstein Files Transparency Act of 2025. Passed with overwhelming support, the act mandated that the Department of Justice release every record related to the investigation. The push for disclosure was fueled by campaign promises and a public that had grown weary of the secrets surrounding the case. The first major release occurred in early 2024, uncovering that the FBI had received tips about Epstein's activities as early as 1996. In December 2025, another massive tranche was published, providing never-before-seen photos of his interactions with high-profile figures. Then came the final release on January 30th, 2026, 3 million pages, a data dump of unprecedented scale. The total production now stands at nearly 3.5 million pages, including 180,000 images and more than 2,000 videos. Despite the volume, the controversy is far from over. Critics argue that heavy redactions continue to shield the most powerful players. While the DOJ claims redactions are to protect the privacy of victims, survivors point out that information about potential enablers is also being hidden. In July 2025, a DOJ memo concluded that no single client list existed and that there was no credible evidence of blackmail. This announcement was met with skepticism across the political spectrum, as many believe the files themselves suggest a more organized operation. The flight logs of his private planes, dubbed the Lolita Express, have been a central part of the disclosure, tracking thousands of trips. These logs, along with his contact book, reveal a network that spanned the globe, involving some of the world's most influential figures. From former White House advisors to tech billionaires, the associations documented in the files highlight the extent of his reach. Perhaps most disturbing is the acknowledgement that millions of pages identified by the investigation were never released. The DOJ stated they have met their legal obligations, but the gap between 3.5 million and 6 million pages remains a focal point for critics. Observers suggest these unreleased materials may hint at a much larger criminal enterprise involving systematic exploitation. Human rights experts have even suggested that the scale of the operations described could amount to crimes against humanity. Epstein's financial services for the world's elite provided the backbone for his network, a side of the case still being unraveled. The files document extensive interactions with major global banks, raising questions about how such an operation could be sustained for so long. Through a maze of shell companies and offshore accounts, Epstein was able to move money across borders with little oversight. The 2024 campaign season brought the case back into the spotlight as candidates faced mounting pressure to promise full transparency. The public demand for the files became a bipartisan issue, cutting through the usual political divisions in a search for the truth. This led to the 2025 Act, but the implementation has been anything but smooth, with legal battles over what can and cannot be released. The impact has been global. In the UK, the royal family has faced renewed scrutiny as names and dates from the logs continue to emerge. Specific trips and social events documented in the files have reignited a conversation about the accountability of those in positions of hereditary power. Paris and other European capitals served as key hubs for the network, which the new data suggests was more integrated than previously understood. With the official investigation being criticized, independent researchers and citizen journalists have taken up the mantle. They are combing through the millions of pages, finding the connections and patterns that may have been missed in the redacted reports. Social media has played a critical role in keeping the story alive, providing a platform for information that traditional outlets were slow to cover. But at the heart of this story are the victims. For them, the files are more than just data. They are a record of their lived experience. Their fight for justice and accountability has been the driving force behind the transparency movement, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. The long-term psychological and social impact of this enterprise is only beginning to be understood as the full scale of the exploitation is revealed. The 2026 disclosures are not the end. They are a gateway into a new era of accountability for the global elite. The world is watching, and every new piece of information brings us closer to understanding the true depth of the system. For many, the Epstein files are a trial of the justice system's ability to hold the most powerful accountable in the digital age. What lies in those final 6 million pages? Until they are released, the tip of the iceberg sentiment will only grow stronger. We may never have the full story, but the disclosures released so far have made one thing certain: the truth, however redacted, is coming to light. Millions of pages, thousands of videos, and a network that spanned continents. The journey to accountability continues. As the remaining files are sought, the international community stands ready to see what else lies hidden beneath the surface of global power. The Epstein files represent a watershed moment in history. Transparency is no longer an option. It is a requirement for a just society. If you found this investigation into the Epstein files and global power structures important, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives. We will continue to follow this story as new data emerges. Thank you for watching.